Hi, I'm Max, and this is KMD Motorsport. And today we're finally actually really doing something. The plan is to have the whole rotating assembly in, so that includes my crank and my pistons and rods. So I've got the crank out, I've got all the main caps ready, I've got the pistons, bearings, bolts, rings, all that. First though, we got to do just a little bit more prep. I just want to clean it one more time real quick. Really make sure that the block is as clean as possible. I also need to clean out the main caps a little bit because for whatever reason they never made it to the machine shop to get cleaned up. That's on me, but they should be fine. So yeah, let's get right into it. I'm gonna get some brake clean and scrub these down, scrub this down, and we can start putting stuff together. Alright, we got brake clean, rags, and we're ready to go. So, alright, I'm actually gonna get some clean gloves first so that I don't get my oil and sweat all over the block. So, got some clean gloves here, and start spraying some brake clean. So what I was doing there was just spraying brake clean down through the oil passages in the main journals and also down into where the oil squirters sit, so that we could really just clean all those out, make sure everything's out of there. And as I'm building this motor, it's gonna see, even more brake clean, but you see that's, what we're picking up already just from that. So, alright, so I'm honestly pretty happy about just how much that was clean. I'm gonna do a wipe of the cylinder walls real quick to just make sure there's nothing really dimensional in there. But those will get cleaned one more time before the pistons go in. Alright, cool. So now we're ready to put the main bearings into each journal here. And then we can drop the crank down in there, and yeah, so let's get to that. I'll take all of them out, set them all up. Alright, so that's all my main bearings set up here, and as you can see, there are two different shapes to the main bearings. So one of these, this one, goes into the main cap. So it sits like this. Not sure. It'll become apparent once we put them together. And then this one sits in the block like this. It'll get pressed down once I start putting them in. Pretty obvious when you're doing it because one of them has a hole for the passage, for the oil passage, and one of them doesn't. But that's just something to keep in mind. And then we have also the thrust bearings. So that's the one that sits in the block. This is the one that sits on the cap. These are shaped different. So the reason that you have these is to help keep the crank from moving back and forth. So you can see the lip that they have here, which the other ones don't. And then you can see in the block, there's a lip that it rests on here that the other ones don't have. This one sits like this. I could tell that because there's a tang here and then a tang there. So you do not oil or lubricate the space between the bearing and the block or the bearing and the cap. The lube only goes between the crank and the bearing. Alright, so I think we can start putting these bearings in there. So start one by one here. So it's got a tang there. Get it lined up. Push in. beautiful. Skipping the thrust bearing for now.
What I'm asking, right?
If for whatever reason it's sliding in, there's a bit of resistance, but videos, you see people doing this and you're like, just kind of doing the thing. I'm not saying they're not masters of their trade.
Spec, I didn't know that you actually measured stretch. That's going to be something new, totally new for me.
Alright, so now we've got the thrust bearing. Again, you got this kind of strange shape here, and this lip will fall onto this lip here. It's actually interesting. I was looking at this one versus the old thrust bearing. Let me grab it real quick. This one, which I would have to assume is the OEM bearing, is actually two pieces that are kind of fitted together. You can see it's, you know, not a solid piece. And to be quite honest, I'm glad I'm not putting in a two-piece thrust bearing again. I like the look of my totally solid piece of metal going in, so it's an interesting tidbit there. Okay, cool. So now the crank can drop in there. So before I drop the crank in, I'm gonna wipe down each of the journals on the crank with a little bit of brake clean, just to make sure those are really nice and clean before it drops in here. So I'm gonna do that real quick, and then I'm gonna bring it over here and drop it in. Now you may have noticed that I did not lube up the main bearings before I put the crank in. And the reason for that is because we still need to plastigauge the journals. If you were to put lube into the journals before you plastigauge, then you would be taking up clearance, and you would also kind of be ruining your plastigauge because it would be covered in lube. So you want the clearance to be totally dry so that you get an accurate measurement of exactly how much space the oil has. Also remember, and I'm gonna have to remind myself to do this, or to not do this, is don't try to rotate your crank when there's no lube in there. So get it to where you want it, and then leave it until you can lube it, or take it out and move it and drop it back in. Which I think I'm actually gonna do here because these counterweights are kind of in my way of putting the plastigauge down in there flat. That is a forged crankshaft if I've ever seen one. Alright, so now I've got, this one's going to be kind of sucky to get to, but these other ones should be nice and easy to set some plastigauge on it and put the caps down. So let me get my plastigauge out and start laying down my strands, and then we can clean the main caps and put those on. Alright, so if I remember correctly, I think the clearance is supposed to be somewhere between 0.02 and 0.058 millimeters, but I'm gonna go back and double check real quick because I'm not 100% sure on that, so give me just a second. Alright, so here I've got my plastigauge, and you can see that there are these weird colored strips that go along the top here. And I feel like whenever people do engine building videos, they kind of just gloss over the plastic gauge. They just say, yeah, cut it and put it down and then measure it and then measure it and then it's good. So I'm gonna do a quick, just kind of, in-depth thing of exactly what you're looking at when you look at one of these. So basically, each one of these lines here is its own separate gauge, I guess. They're all exactly the same. They all have the same numbers and same thicknesses or widths. So what you do is you cut at one of these white areas between the gauges, and then you slip out that piece of thread that's in there. You place that on your journal, and then you bolt down each of your caps, and you put one of those strands on each one of your journals, tighten it down, and then you tighten it to spec. Then you untighten everything, pull everything off, and check the thickness of that thread that was now squished. And how much it's squished is measured by these lines here. So my squish should be between 0.02 millimeters and 0.058 millimeters. So I've got scissors. I'm gonna cut here. That might be a bit long for this. Yeah, so I'm not going to use that entire length because it might squish out the side of the journal and then it'll be even more of a pain cleaning. So I'm going to cut it a little shorter once I get it out of here. Alright, so there's my strand there, and that's definitely way too long. I don't need all that, so I'm just going to cut it about yay. Place that down.
A little light, but maybe not. It's shiny. I see it pretty good.
Alright, there we go. So that's one down. I'm going to use that other half on the next journal here. Alright. And just keep going down the line, cutting more off. Alright, so now it's time to clean up these caps and put them on. So these things are pretty nasty. I'm gonna turn around and spray them, wipe them. Also, by the way, when you're taking the old bearings out, it's pretty easy. You just kind of push on them from the side. They kind of move around a little bit, shake them out. Push them back and forth, pop out. So. Alright, so I got all the main caps in, clean, bearings in. I just want to show you guys real quick. These are directional. So you can see there's the tangs here and then no tangs here. The tangs go with the other tangs. So it might look a little weird because here there's two of them. And then on the in the block there's only one on one side. By side I mean this side or this side, not this side or this side. So there's only one and it's over here at the block. This is the one that touches that. So these are directional. Make sure you know which way you're putting them in. So tangs here. Alright. Now the main caps don't sit in immediately nicely to their spot. So you kind of have to push them in and encourage them to sit flat in there. So might need a mallet for that. So I'm gonna grab a dead blow real quick and just to keep around. Along with my dead blow, I'm also going to get out an impact just so I can run these down. That's not what I'm going to use to actually torque them, but I don't want to have to manually thread all these threads down, so I'm going to grab that real quick also. Now, what are these? 16s, 15s? Let's find out. 17. Alright, before I run these down though, I'm going to take them out so that I can just kind of tap on the holes a bit to get the caps seated properly onto the block. So I'm going to pull these all out, tap it a bit, and make sure they're sitting flush, and then I'll run the bolts down and torque them to spec. Alright, those are out. Now, as you can see, I'm not slamming down on the caps. I'm just kind of encouraging them to go in there. I'm not trying to break anything. I'm not trying to wreck anything. I just kind of want them to sit down in there. Alright, and I'm pretty happy about that. So now I can go back and put all these bolts back in. Alright, and now I'm going to run them down. I gotta double check the tightening pattern, but I think it's like this one, 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 something like that. But I'm gonna double check real quick. Alright, so basically it's this cap, this cap, this cap, this cap, this cap, this cap, this cap. It didn't seem like it mattered too much which, bolt was first, but it's kind of, this. So first you go to 20 Newton meters, and then after all of them are set to 20 Newton meters, we then go 70 degrees doing the same pattern. And then it will be tightened to spec, and then we can take them off and check the plastigauge. And this is where my fancy new digital torque wrench comes into play. So I saw something about how you should, when you turn it on, do it on something level. So I'm going to do this, which I'm not sure why, but it said it will make the calibration faster or something. I don't know. So turn it on. Okay. Alright, and it's actually already set to 20 Newton meters because I was messing with it earlier. You can see that there. Oh, well, no, you can't. Hang on. I'll do something here. Now it's turned on. Or the LCD is on. Okay, anyway, I believe I have it set to peak torque mode right now. There's 3 options, peak, trace, and angle. So trace, I guess, it gives you a live readout of what your current torque is, and then peak is like what the peak torque was. I'm keeping it on peak so I know exactly what I torqued them to. It also has a little beeper and a light on it, so I'm excited to try this out because I've never gotten to use one of these before, so this will be neat. But yeah, so I'm just gonna start 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, and then I'll set it to the angle mode, set it to 70 degrees, and then it should do the thing. Oh, look at that. So that one I went to 20.2 Newton meters. Isn't that neat? Alright, here we go, next one.
20 and then back the other.
That was right dead on. So you may have noticed that I'm actually using my old main bolts. That's because I don't want to put that torque onto my new main bolts until I'm ready to use them. Now, really, from what I've heard from one person on YouTube, 50s Kid, if you're familiar, he actually looked at what the yield torque was, or like what the yield point was for these bolts, which is basically the point at which once you torque them past that or to that, they won't unstretch. And from what he saw, the yield point was actually way higher than what you torque these to. So hypothetically, I could probably reuse these. I already bought new ones. And also, if I'm going to be, testing stuff, I might as well do it with the old main bolts. So that's why I'm using the old ones. You choose what you want to do with that information. Alright, so that's all of them set to 20 Newton meters. Next, we just have to go through and set them 70 degrees. So that'll be interesting. I have no clue how this thing can know that I turned it 70 degrees. I guess it's just like based off of how long maybe it's been under torque or something. I don't know. But it's a pretty cool feature. So I'm gonna set A, go up to 70 degrees. Cool. 70 degrees. I know it says Newton meters there at the top, but right next to it there's a little degree symbol. I don't know if you can see that, but there you go, 70 degrees. It also says A down here for angle. So I'm going to do the same pattern, and then we can disassemble, and I'll be scared for every point of that because I really hope I don't have to buy new main bearings, or different main bearings is what I mean. Alright, now whenever you're using a torque wrench or torquing something down, you should always do one smooth, continuous turn. I feel like for the angle measurement, though, it's even more important that you do that. So when you do it, try your best to just not stop and just keep going. And once it's there, stop, and you're good. Don't, because then you might get a bad measurement. Of course I say that and then stop after 11 degrees because I didn't know what was going on here. Too much. It's fine. It's fine. No, it's not. Okay. Alright, so I just messed that one up. I went to like 72 degrees. 70.5, 70.8, whatever, especially because this isn't the final installation. But I am trying to get an accurate plastigauge reading, so I went back, untightened that one, or loosened it, and then went back 20 Newton meters, and then just went, and now I'm going to do 70 degrees again. So just make sure you get yourself in a good angle to do this, because if you don't, then you end up you might, do what I just did. So set yourself up for success. Alright, well, I'm glad I got the practice of doing that before the final install, because that kind of sucked. So these are all torqued down properly now, and we can take it apart and see what the plastigauge says. I'm a little reluctant to do it just because I'm scared it'll tell me something I don't want to know, but we kind of have to. So start taking them apart. Alright. So the thrust bearing cap is being pretty stubborn right now. I don't feel like dealing with it. I'm just going to check the rest of the plastigauge right now, and then I'll go back to messing with this just so I can confirm that everything's okay. So I'm going to go through how to measure again one more time. So you'll see it on the gauge here. You have 0.025 millimeters, 0.038 millimeters, 051 and 076. And you might be looking at it and being like, why the smaller the number, the larger the gap or width of the measurement is. And the reason is that you're not actually measuring, this isn't actually measuring distance. This width correlates to a clearance of 0.025 millimeters. So the smaller the number, the more that piece of plastigauge is going to crush, which means the wider it's going to be when it's sitting on the crank. So that's why the larger width corresponds to the smaller number. So I'm going to line this up and see about where I am, and hopefully we're in tolerance. We'll go from there. So I'm going to line it up on each of these journals, and then we'll see. So we'll start at the first one here. So I'll line it up at the 025, and at the widest point, it's smaller than the 025 width, which means that it is between 025 and something bigger. It's no less than 025. So that's good because the lower bound was 02. Now for the thinnest area, so right here, which is going to be the middle of the journal, which makes sense. We are wider than 051, which is good because 051 is less than the upper bound of 058. So this whole piece here looks fine, looks great. So we're gonna go to the next one here. It's gonna be hard for you guys to see that one, but we're again around the 038, which is about what the other one was at. We'll go to this next one here, and we're within the bounds. That one's a little wide, but it's still only just approaching 025, and our lower bound was 02. So we're still, we still got plenty. And this one also is well within our tolerance. So that's very much a relief. It's not like I had much of a reason to think that it wouldn't work, but it's nice to know that it did. So now I just have to get the thrust bearing cap off and then kind of scrape all this plastigauge off of here. I've heard it can be a bit of a pain to clean. Yeah, I don't know, we'll see. Now you can see me struggle with this thrust bearing cap. You want to come in frame here and help me out? Just
I'm gonna jiggle the other side of the
no, just
crank this.
yeah, just lift.
I see it moving with the crank. You see that?
Yep. Yeah, it's coming. Cool. Thank you.
Yep. 4 hands.
No, come back.
Oh, it's not loose.
Well, that was lovely. Came out. Just needed a couple more hands. Yeah, so now I gotta get the crap off of here. So we've got some of these plastic scrapers. They're really nice for like scraping stuff off of your like window or something like that, or something like this where you don't want to gouge any metal, but you need to scrape some stuff off. Goof off probably would work, but I don't know if I really want to introduce that to the crank because that stuff is kind of oily and gross. So I'll try to just scrape it off with this. Oh, it's coming off real nice. Yeah, so if anyone out there is complaining about scraping plastigauge off of your crank, just get some of these because it works real well.
The thing is so reflectively bright. Like, oh, maybe we should put some black tape on our thing and just leave the yellow, just the thinnest yellow edge. We slow down for the laser. Like this. Need to change. This one might be better than the other side. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's nice. Oh, I see it come out.
All right, so that's all the crank. That's the crank cleaned up. Now I've got to do the same process for the caps. So these should be easier to do though, because I can just run it across the thing, hopefully. But here we go. Take a look and see. So now I've got to pull the crank out, hopefully for the last time. Put my oil squirters in, and then lube up the journals, or the bearings, and then should be able to put it together for the last time, hopefully. So let me get to that. Cool. Alright, so here are all my oil squirters. I had to dig around for them because they're at the bottom of the milk crate, but got them all here. I'm probably going to take some of these bolts over to the wire wheel because they've still got some Loctite on from when they were installed the first time. And I'm going to spray each of them down with some brake clean. Yeah, so some people say, a lot of people say, to get new oil squirters, these are like $40 each, and there's 6 of them. They'll be okay. The block didn't show any signs of oil, of not getting oil up into the cylinder, because everything looked good. There's no scoring. There's no signs of being dry, except for in the head there was some weird stuff going on in there. But everything on the bottom end looked perfectly fine. I have no reason to believe that any of these oil squirters aren't working. I've also heard of them breaking. The motor only had like 130,000 miles on it. If people can get by until 300,000 miles on these motors without the oil squirter breaking, I don't see any reason why my stock oil pump is going to kill these oil squirters. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I feel like that's one of those things that people get scared of, that like it happened to somebody, so like you should do it. Well, a lot of things happen to a lot of people. I don't know. Maybe I'll eat my words in the future, but I don't foresee it happening. So I'm just gonna clean these up, put Loctite on the bolts, and I don't see why it would affect anything. So, all right, let me go clean these up, and then you'll see what they look like once everything's all nice and polished. All right, so I've got the bolts nice and cleaned up. They came out pretty nice. I can't really get inside of the Allen key, but the rest of it looks pretty good. And after further reading about the oil squirter issue, I've come to find that I really don't think I'll have any problem reusing these. One, it seems like the problem where they break only happens under race conditions where you're kind of constantly pinned above 6,000 RPM. That's not going to happen with this car. This is a street car, you know, it'll do a few pulls every once in a while, but I'm not just going to be banging the limiter all the time. So that seems to be where the actual physical braking of the squirters comes into play due to like harmonics. The source of it is kind of the same as the oil pump nut backing off. So I don't foresee them actually breaking. If this was a track car, then I'd get new ones, but it's not. And then the point of some of them just like not working, I saw some people say they pulled them and they weren't working when they came off the car. I've been using a paper clip to push on the little ball bearing inside. From what I've read, all that's going on in here is a little spring and some kind of ball bearing or some kind of stopper at the top here that is like a check valve. As long as it opens and closes nicely, I don't see why it would be a problem. Again, I might eat my words, but there's only one way to find out. So yeah, I'm having my coworker here spray brake clean through the nozzle as I hold open the check valve, just to get any old gunk and oil out of there as much as we can. So you can take a look at that now, but just to get a close-up for you of what we're doing here, you got the inlet of the oil squirter here, and then the little ball bearing in there, or whatever it is, and then my paper clip. I'm just sticking that in and pressing it out, and you can actually see the oil that came out of there. So we're gonna shoot some brake cleaner through that, and yeah, we'll put them in.
Oh, yeah. So you want to see if it fits in there. It seems similar, spring,
That's 6. Alright, so I just sprayed some brake clean through there with a set of extra hands, and I'm only being more and more reassured that I think these will be just great. So I'm gonna put some 271 Loctite on there and just thread them in. I think 10 Newton meters is about what people usually torque these to. I might sit here and try to find something that says it a little more definitively, but it seems like 10 Newton meters is about what people do. But I'm going to take a second and see if I can find something more explicit. So give me just a second. Alright, so I couldn't find anything specifically, any manuals or anything that said 10 Newton meters, but people seem to think it's going to be, about what the oil pan bolts are, which is 10 Newton meters. So I'm just going to go based off of that. I think tight is good enough for these. You just need to make sure they don't back out. So let's go for it. So I'm just going to make sure that this is just really clear of any oil. Alright, and we just slide it right in there. Then the bolt will go in there. Let me get some Loctite on it. So it appears that these are 5 mil Allen. So I've got this on an extension. There we go. Alright, I'm gonna get my torque wrench. 10 Newton meters. Here we go. Alright. Alright, so oil squirters are in. I think we're ready to put the crank in. Yeah, I'm pretty happy and excited about this. So this is like first thing coming together. So alright, so it's time to get everything lubed up and get the crank in. So I've got my engine assembly lube, and I've got some nitrile gloves that are nice and clean, so I won't feel bad rubbing all this stuff down. So pretty simple, just squirting some stuff on here, rubbing it on, drop the crank in, and then keep lubing stuff up.
Generous or sparing portion?
Alright, so I went back and added a little extra to some of these others. Alright. So now I can take these gross gloves off for now. So time to get out the main bearing, or the main bolts. Oh. But, so. Along with these, there are these over here. These are braces that go you all can hear that, that's my cat trying to escape. So there are these braces here that go here, 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 and here. No, there's more than that. Oh, they go up to here? Yeah, they go up to here. So I gotta take these back out. Wire wheel. I just showed my thumb on it now. That's what I'm saying. That's, I don't know, that's I think I may have taken some life up for your wire wheel with that, but alright, so the braces are all wire wheeled down and look a lot better than they did before. Yeah, so basically these sit on top, well, on the bottom as such.
The brace goes.
Alright, so I couldn't find the torque spec for these brace bolts. So I'm just gonna put some 271 Loctite on there. Is that what it is? 271? Yeah, some 271 Loctite on there. And I don't know, torque them 30, 35, 40 Newton meters. I feel like that would be enough. I don't know, if it seems like too much, then I'll back it off. I'll just kind of feel it out, I guess. But I'm definitely gonna put some Loctite on there. And we'll go from there.
50 or
Alright, I'm starting at 25 Newton meters. If that doesn't seem like enough, then I'll up it from there. And we'll just kind of figure out what I want to set them at. I think I'm gonna go to 35. No, I'll go to 30. Alright, so now we can go to tightening down the main caps. Well, that's what you want right there. I mean, just smooth as can be. Wonderful. All right, well, I think that's it for today. We'll pick up with the pistons tomorrow. We're gonna have to take the pistons apart, lube the wrist pins and stuff like that. I'm also gonna take the rods to the wire wheel because they've gotten a bit rusty while sitting in the garage. So yeah, tomorrow should be pretty interesting because we'll be putting the pistons in and measuring stretch and all that. So yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. I think that was pretty good.
Oh, sorry. Oh, this little fan's having a conniption fit.
Do you want to start again, or?
Yeah.
Because I mean, we can see the trash truck. It's kind of fun.
And then they all blow away.
Can I cut?
Yeah.